Albert Thompson is a marketing technologist, cultural strategist, and respected leader in the advertising industry who has built his career at the intersection of data, culture, and community. As a former managing director at Walton Isaacson, founded by Aaron Walton, Corey Isaacson, and Irvin Magic Johnson, Albert helped brands better understand and authentically engage diverse audiences. He's been recognized by Adweek as a media all-star and is a frequent industry speaker. But beyond the accolades, he's a person of color who has navigated and led in rooms where representation hasn't always been in that room or been the norm. Albert brings both executive insight and lived experience to conversations about marketing, leadership, and impact. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Albert Thompson to the Playbook with Coach Rod. All right, my brother Albert, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. How you feeling? Good to be here.
I can't complain, man. It's such a pleasure to have you. I love when I get to talk with my brothers who are, high up in their respected fields and just learn from them. I'm always about learning, right? Our people perish for lack of knowledge. You get what I'm saying? Right. And again, people already heard who you were, the positions you've held. But to someone who doesn't understand marketing technologists, strategists, to the average person, how would you describe who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if I had to characterize myself in a quick soundbite catchphrase, it would be a marketing technologist. I mean, I've been in digital almost my entire career. I mean, minus 6 months, so 25 years plus.
Wow.
Started off at interactive agencies, worked in interactive departments, and then helped agencies build their digital practice. But I always tell people I'm a marketer's marketer, not an agency guy. I'm not a media guy. I understand marketing is the parent company. And I think that's an important frame because I think a lot of people forget it's not about what advertising, what media says. It's about what marketing says, because marketing's pursuit is to pursue all things consumer and consumerism. And I think we get lost. I always tell people, like, agencies are like sometimes kids with credit cards. They got high balances, limits, they just spend it. Marketing is the framework about meeting a consumer with a product in a marketplace. Not that hard. But there's so much noise out there. I think people get confused of what really is the foundation, the bedrock of business, and that is marketing.
So what's interesting, right? Because in my role, I get to teach entrepreneurs, right?
Absolutely.
And I always explain to them, don't confuse social media with marketing, right? Right? Because that's what you think it is. I'm going to invest into marketing. Marketing is actually the overarching strategy. It's that, to your point, it's the intersection of where price, product, placement, promotion, and that customer meet is they're integrated, right? And how are we going to effectively do that? But you mentioned something, and I'm going to go off script a little bit. 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're really at the onset of this digital. What was it like 25 years ago, and how have you seen it just rapidly progress, if you don't mind me asking?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I've been blessed to have been in business long enough to see everything built that actually matters. I mean, I remember when Google.com went up as a search engine, and people like, why is that screen so blank with a box? That don't make no sense. That seems to be a user interface design era. It ended up being user interface design gold. I saw the portal area, I saw the social media area. I was doing influencer marketing when it was bloggers. So look, the interesting thing is there was good, honest work, manual work being done in the earlier era that we've lost because everything is so automated. So people don't know how it works. It's kind of like when you talk to your kids, like, y'all don't know how nothing is made in this world. We're the generation that made it by hand. We have a different respect for it. So when people talk about marketing, it's like I did everything manually, meaning I did search engine optimization manually. Like I created content keywords, uploaded the source code, hit refresh to make sure it showed up. That's manual. Not all these automated tools we got out here. I used to look at weblog data. So people who can't read MRI and Mintel, Nielsen, what are you talking about? Try weblog data and make meaning of it and tell the client what they need to do next. So that ability you start in the career early is you have the gift of what the biblical term discernment. You can understand what's real, what's fake. I can understand what's AI and what's not, just based on the context and how it's written, and it doesn't have the sentient being behind it. And a lot of people can't discern that stuff. That's why people think social media is marketing. I'm like, well, social media is a series of things. Just the way people would argue with me, well, YouTube is just a video platform. No, YouTube is like 5 things. It's a commerce platform. It's a search engine.
Yep.
It's a video it's a TV network now.
Mm-hmm.
I think people just don't understand what these things are, because a lot of things are defined at the infrastructure level. You got to remember, a lot of what we see on the front is veneers. You got to take the veneers off, and then you see what it actually is. And I think that's what's missing in the discipline of people who are incumbents in the seat now, and the youth that are going to come in. They just don't understand how it's made. To understand, as you asked me, what's happened in the last 25 years? Well, the consumer is still the only one guaranteed to win. We are still in pursuit of their identity and why they buy and do what they do.
Nothing wow. Yeah.
And now we have more tools to do it, but we're actually have the less ability to make sense of all the information.
Oh, that's powerful right there. That's powerful. We have more abilities, but less sense to make, less knowledge to make sense of the information.
1,000%.
So, because part of what I try to do is, again, just give representation across, the diaspora. When did you know you wanted to get into this field? Like, like a lot of us, I speak for myself, I stumbled backwards, right, into this. So tell me, how did you decide to get into this?
Look, man, I knew in high school, junior year, sitting in class, someone's talking about some organization was talking about marketing, what it did, derivatives of advertising. I'm like, boom, that's it. That's me. I already knew. My father was a doctor. I'm like, I ain't going through 12 years of med school. My mother's a retired school teacher. I'm like, they don't pay enough. I mean, everything was very binary. And I use the word binary literally, kind of if then, that's it, that's me. I think the difference between me and a lot of people is I treat it like my craft. And I have no qualms against anyone who found themselves in the industry. But there are people, as you said, who stumbled in backwards, but they're just not very good. I think it's a fantastic industry, but it's got a lot of crappy people in it that basically need to get out, because no one's in investment banking for fake. No one's in pharmaceutical for fake. No one is trying to be a music artist for fake. But there are a lot of people in the advertising media business that have totally different degrees, and they just kind of stayed there because the job paid it. It became very familiar. But I'm like, you don't have no passion. And for you, it's not a craft. And if it's not your craft, you won't continuously build and accelerate on top of it. And that's where complacency sets in, like, very quickly.
All right. So you knew in high school. So how did you prepare yourself? Like, how did you begin preparing yourself, right? Because what's unique about you, and probably my favorite part, is that you combine data. And for our listeners who don't understand marketing is really data driven when you get good at this. So when did you, how did you decide, okay, I'm going to take these electives, I'm going to take these courses, I'm going to apply for this internship, or I'm going to start this company on my own? Take me along that journey, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, look, my journey was kind of written, meaning went to Florida A&M, enrolled in their School of Business, SBI. They had a full professional development program. They had paid internships as part of the program, not just free internships, paid internships. And they really stepped the frame, went all the way through, got an MBA alongside my wife. So I would say the professional acumen was really set. The journey was set. And the class of people we went to school with, we still keep up with them. So we were all blessed because it was a one-of-a-kind professional development program that didn't exist, not only in any other HBCU, but any other school in general. I think from there, it's where it got interesting. And if I had to look back and define it, I would define it like this. I always approach myself like I'm always in development. I'm programming my own machine, trying to be my own algorithm. So I'm constantly hungry. People that ask me, after I got into digital in 99, how I got so far 5-10 years later, I'm like, I just outread you. And when I mean outread you, I read everything, every white paper, everything for a decade. So you talk about binging intellectual content to turn it into information you can actually weaponize. That becomes powerful. It is a compounding effect, no different than investing in stocks, bonds, CDs, crypto, whatever, where you do it over and over and over and over again. And all of a sudden down the line later, you see separation. A lot of people don't approach themselves as if they are always in development. It's kind of like, how a smartphone is never finished. They get it 3 months later and it's already obsolete. Now you got to get a new one. I treated myself like an unfinished good, like a ship that never comes into port. And that mentality, very binary, is what creates a sort of an accelerator type of mindset.
Wow. So, and that speaks to the passion, because you're not doing that if you're not passionate about what you're doing, because it's constant. Yeah, it makes sense. And that actually helps me in my craft helping business owners discern, because everyone who's worked with me knows that I have a pet peeve against people that call themselves marketers, because again, I as well studied this, and I know there's a strategy, and I know there's data, and you've done something real well that you've gotten success out of. Now you're monetizing it to other people, but you don't understand the bigger.
Well, the other thing about marketing, not to cut you off, is marketing is very much about money, about math. I mean, you got to understand, early in my career, I had what a lot of people didn't have, and that was intellectual curiosity above all else. Like, if you stay intellectually curious, you'll always be pursuing. And I asked heads of marketing, I said, how much math, accounting, financial accounting, managerial accounting, corp finance is part of marketing? They said that is the job. It is not ad campaigns. It is not just manufacturing, because everything has numbers, amount of units produced, how many are packed on shipping trucks and put on jumbo jets, how many are stocked at retail, how many sold that day, what are the margins that we make, what's the overall gross we've now accumulated. Like, that is the
talking my language. Well, you're preaching right now.
Yeah. Marketing is math. It ain't that calculus we hate, but it is very much P&L's money management.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you say that, right? Because now people are listening, they're understanding how, if they want to get to the levels that you've reached, and now you run your own show where you dictate who you work with, these are some things they have to invest into, which people tend to run from. So one of the questions that I know, my peers and my colleagues, when I told them I'm going to have this conversation with you, they wanted to make sure that I asked you was, and I have to read it, you've led at the highest levels in marketing and tech, often in spaces where people who look like us are still underrepresented. What's something about that journey people don't see from the outside?
Wow. Well, look, it was rare for a long stretch of time, still rare, a Black guy in digital. Like, say that out loud a few times, especially in any facet, any company, especially on the agency side. I was really the only one. All my peers on the media side. So I've always been their client, so to speak. So we meet up wherever we see each other. I'm the only agency guy. They're and they don't even want to touch it. I think what you have to understand is you gotta pick the trajectory you're aiming for. I think a lot of people don't pick the trajectory. You have to pick it. So my thing was like, well, I'd love to be a top marketer one day. So I started studying the CMO suite, because the CMO is everybody's boss. He's a brand team's boss. He's a media company's boss. He's the agency boss. He's the check writer. And I said, if I understand the decisions he makes and I can speak his language, I can make sure that I can always be a player and be activated in the space. And I heard a quote from Simon Sinek, is like, you want to be a finite player in a finite game, because you'll plateau out. And that's what AI is going to do a lot of people. But do you want to be an infinite player in an infinite game? And I was like, that's me. Infinite player, infinite game. And again, all sort of binary mentality. But when you start to look at that, then you really start to understand, okay, well, what does it take to be an infinite player in the game of marketing until? And that's a very, very different pursuit. And that gets to the hunger of always trying to consume information, asking marketers what the job is about, really understanding it, paying attention to the decisioning of the marketer, the pain points of the marketer, and then even looking at the media and the press, how they break down the tenure of a CMO. I guess we still at 18 months. So once you put this all together, then you understand the dynamics of what you have to contend with. I think a lot of people enter an industry and do not understand what they have to contend with.
Ooh. How would they understand? How would they get that understanding? How would they get that breakthrough?
They got to consume everything. Like, everything. Like, it's funny. If we all looked at each other's Instagram feeds, we'd all think we live in a different country. It's a totally different world algorithm. My algorithm is tight. I got cars, which you can see from what's over my shoulder.
Yeah.
I got things that are humorous, and it's AI. Like, I understand the discipline of marketing enough. I don't need marketing coming in the fuse. I need to understand how technology is going to remap marketing. So I got spatial internet stuff. Let's call it the metaverse. I got AI stuff. So I'm binging, webinars, probably 5 hours every single week now, just on every topic related to. And it's not just about marketing. It's about what it's going to do to supply chain, customer experience, Like, I want to understand the entire picture, the entire frame, because I want to synthesize the information. So the main thing I say is, look, find some good newsletters, find some good podcasts. Find some good intellects that you can always bounce off, set up your feed and then consume it and continue to start to synthesize it and start to put pieces together, figure out what interlocks and what relates to what. I think people just aren't doing the work. It's work. Look, the average kid who want to play pro ball, what is he doing? watching highlight videos of people who play a skill set, watching training. They watching Saquon Barkley. They people didn't watch Walter Payton because there was no social media. But now they can look at the old training regimen he did, and new running backs do that. People can do this around sports. I'm amazing, but they don't do it around their craft and their work that they would outlive playing a sport anyway. I don't understand that. What do musicians do? They study musicality. You know, they study production. They study beat makers. All these things. When you hear them talk about it, and I get it. These are more passionate pursuits. But at the end of the day, a job is a job. If you consider it your craft, put in the work. People just don't want to work.
Man, listen, that's very powerful, and you're preaching to me right now. Just that passion. I'm thinking to myself, how do I take my game up another level? Am I consuming enough? Just for people who are listening, because again, you mentioned agency, you mentioned media. Can you speak to the difference between the two and how they play together?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, the marketing and media is kind of an ecosystem. Look, marketing is a parent company. You know, wholesale, shipping, distribution, retail, all sits underneath. Advertising, sales, you know, events, all that are all derivatives underneath. When you start to look at the two, media is under there as well. And I mean, media sits outside, but it sits underneath because it's part of the fold. You know, media really comes down to the outlet, the pipes, where information is distributed out. It doesn't matter if it's TV, it's digital at home, digital audio, it's social media. So some of these facets under media have multiple dimensions. You know, so they're not, you know, social media is a community, but it also has media distribution elements and attributes to it as well. When you look at the agency world, the agencies are really brokers. Remember, the word agency means to take on decisioning. That is the word agency. Agencies are supposed to be making decisions. Agencies stopped taking up agency a long time ago, and then things like programmatic just accelerated. Now AI wants to come up and take up agency. So agencies were always the broker. They were the broker of media activation on behalf of brands. They were the intermediary to make it make sense. But somewhere along the way, they got tied up in the B2B business. It's the B2B2C business. They all forgot the C. And now a lot of them are just simply going to pay the price because they were so invested and enthralled in each other and not enough in the consumer who's going to change everything.
Yeah. Like you said, in the end, the consumer's still going to win.
Yeah.
Right. So you've been recognized by Adweek. You're respected across the industry. People come to you for authentic branding and beyond just that. But I'm curious, what did it cost you to get there? Like, where did it cost you to be in some of these rooms where nobody looks like us? More importantly, what did you learn that you had to protect? Because one of the things that I love about you is, from what I see, right, and when I speak, your identity is not compromised.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I know as people start to pursue certain pathways, you have decisions you have to make.
Yep.
All right. So, you know, if we could speak to that, was anything that you learned that you had to protect to and still get to where you wanted to be?
It was interesting. When I was in college, I asked a couple of my professors, like, how do you project credibility when you're still young? How do you pull it off? And the best response I got was, you know, from my late mentor and saying, you know, Mr. Thompson, you got to be beyond reproach, beyond the ability to question. You got to be that tight with everything. He said, especially if you're going to come in with some style and some swag. He was pointing to the pierced ears I had back when I was 18. He said, if you're going to walk in the room like that, you're going to have to be beyond reproach because people are going to make assumptions about that. The fact that you're African-American male, all these things. So I started to really workshop, what does that mean to be beyond reproach? Well, you got to dress the part. You got to look all business. I got to be articulate, not hard. My mother was a kindergarten teacher, so I wasn't allowed to say uhs and ums anyway. You know, you got to carry yourself like a professional. Then I started studying people later in my career who did that, like Tom Cruise does that well. Look at Brad Pitt. I mean, people who have this sort of gravitas. You know, there's no bad story written about them. You know, Denzel Washington. The other thing is I'm a brand identity guy. So I totally get the idea of identity, which to a degree that I can, you know, lecture and speak on it and pertains to the consumer class. But it's not that I don't not apply that to myself, to the point that you develop a brand for yourself that is that some degree of distinction. Like one of mine is the unapologetic truth teller. I'm just going to tell it like it is. You're going to need to accept it though, because I'm not wrong. And you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get behind it because it might save you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not worried about it. And look, don't get me wrong. The other elements of my brand is that, you know, you might find me with a scarf or two. You might find me with a few rings. I mean, look, those are like passionate pursuits and hobbies. I just play around with it. But the idea is that I'm very serious about what I put over the wire. I think it was one of the things that Childish Gambino said, who's Dan Glover. He was like, look, make them see you the way you want to be seen, so they don't see you the way they just want to see you. A lot of people haven't put the time in to make the world outside see them the way they want to be seen in an aspirational light.
That's very profound and very powerful. It's funny because again, as you're speaking, I'm reflecting. This is the benefit of me being on this podcast, because I'm learning while we try to bring knowledge to the people. And that was a big turning point for me, because my career started in banking.
Oh yeah.
And there was a moment where I said, you know what? Because when I'm not here, I wear my earrings.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna wear my earrings and come to work. Right? It just is what it is. And then what I started realizing, and I don't want to make this crude, but I'm gonna just simplify this. As long as you can make people money,
yes,
they don't really care.
Yeah.
Don't mess up their money. Don't stop their money. Help them grow money. Listen, be you.
It's about setting the frame. So I make sure I set the frame with everything and everything you see and get, so people can't make the assumptions. I'd rather people be curious, like, who is that dude? I may have to go talk to him, just see who he is. I just want to be nosy. And I've had people, do that, literally walk up to me, and I just started, I was like, I want to know who you are. And then we just talk, and then look, at that point, people were like, you sharp, but I wanted to hear what you had to say. So you have to make sure you carry it all the way through in terms of delivering. Look, I do it with honesty. It's not a game. It's not a veneer. It is, but I've practiced the craft of speaking, practice the craft of moderating, asking questions. I mean, we like I said, we are in development. So I've looked at Matthew McConaughey. I look at late night talk show hosts to see how they do it and how they create this attraction to get people to be vulnerable. It's an art form. You know what I'm saying? So you start to master it, then you start to sort of disarm people. Then you get favor. Then you can get information out of people most other people can't get. I think what people aren't doing is looking at themselves as a product in continuously developing and refining it and building it out. Because when people will see me, I'm like, yeah, I didn't just get here yesterday. It's been a build. Like, I could take you through the timeline of what it looked like. It didn't quite look like this. I think people don't notice till they see you almost at the finish, the end of the journey, the finish good, but they don't see you when you are coming through and shaping and molding. And that's what people have to understand. No one's going to care. You're going to have to transform yourself in the beginning. No one will be watching. So you need to develop yourself the same way you'd be singing in the shower, like nobody hears, and as they say, dance in the rain because nobody can see. I think people want to be affirmed as significant along the development process when they are not really significant yet. You're significant to family and loved ones, but to the professional class, that is earned the hard way, the long way, the honest way. And that's what I think people just don't understand, because unless you've seen it made, you have no idea. And that's the one beauty about platforms like social media, is that they'll lay out Tom Cruise's journey. Just saw the other day. They'll lay out Denzel Washington's journey. They'll talk about the first role. They'll talk about, J. Cole, how he was homeless and broke.
Yeah.
And the landlord didn't make him. So you see, and you're like, wow, like, it's no accident. Tony Robbins, came from a relatively poor family. And one instance changed his life and his whole trajectory. You're like, oh, he's here for a reason. He was going to be here. Not he was just gifted as some, well-to-do middle-class individual who was like a trust fund kid. Like, no, that he started from the bottom. Now he's here.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said before, right? This is a craft. We are a product, and funny enough, we are the product, and we are also the craftsmen.
Yes.
So there are no excuses. We have the ability to build ourselves up into what we want to be, right? And you don't necessarily, to examples you made, you don't need millions of dollars. You just need a hunger to digest relevant information. So one of the key things about, your professional journey is, using culture as a strategy, right? And the culture has been a buzzword. And when did you realize that being tapped into the culture should become a strategy, and a strategy that these agencies use? And the good thing about culture, it has to be delivered authentically, or else it won't be accepted. When did you see this becoming on the horizon? Because I'm still back from the old school where you just cold call and you convince someone.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the journey of culture. I mean, look, I've worked with 4 multicultural agencies, all Black owned. So I've been in the business. So I didn't necessarily pay attention to my thing at that point. investments to match contribution. If this segment contributes 25% of the bottom line, you should be looking to spend minimum 20% or whatever of the money so you can make the profitability in P&L. Look, that's not emotional. Those are just brass tacks, straight facts.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get into the science of culture until I did a Advertising Week panel with Vice Media Group, Vice Insights,
Mm-hmm.
The head of at the time, and talked about the truth in culture. That culture helps us see the world. It helps us call BS in the world. It helps us find our place. It provides definition. But the most important thing that culture does, it's where trust is created. You got to remember, the world's currency is not the US dollar. It's trust. Trust is what keeps countries from nuking each other.
Yeah.
Trust is what is the blind faith we take as it pertains to, if we have some level of spirituality, we're going to trust God. I'm making it up. Trust is the thing that allows marriages to continue to move back and forth. It is what allows business relationships. And I think what people need to understand is culture is just more powerful than the movement, the energy, and the music. If it is the foundation of trust, then it is the foundation of the world's most powerful currency. Because the only thing as powerful as trust is fear, because fear is sticky. So you got these two opposing things who one is foundationally the bedrock and the other one is very sticky and hard to shake. And look, if there's no trust, then you best believe that the other thing present is fear. And that is what makes culture so powerful.
Wow. So right now I'm almost lost for words, right? Because I've never, and again, because I'm a practitioner, right? Marketing is one of my fields. We all know typically you speak to the customer's pain, right? You speak to the fear.
Yeah.
But in this conversation, I'm realizing the stick-to-itiveness and the longevity of a new company's ability to last will be to actually create a profound level of trust. Right? That's the trusted brands, and this is what's creating a competitive, it's changing the landscape, so to speak, where new upstarts are able to actually compete with bigger brands. Because if you can tap into the culture and be rooted in trust, then you have a loyal customer, and then we can get into the economics of customer life value and things of that nature.
100%. Because here's the thing: what brands have to understand is trust is the foundation of how human nature works. We don't go into the future with people who don't know. We don't trust them. I always joke with people, say 1,000 times, the reason we ain't all in the metaverse is because Cox Media, GE, Sears, Sinclair didn't take us into the metaverse. If they did, we'd all be there. But we don't know these companies, Roblox, Fortnite. We don't know them. Those are strangers. So we're not doing it. I know them as a digital guy, but a lot of people I don't know them. Mm-hmm. So that's why it matters when you start thinking about the idea of accelerating the premise of a brand. The other thing is branding is very much about aligning with one's identity. Well, the whole alignment with identity is that I trust that the representation of the product represents me and portrays me in a good light. You also have to understand people choose for different reasons than they consider. The consideration architecture is very different than the ultimate choice by architecture, meaning Nike saying, hey, we got dope colors, dope this, dope that. The person buys, I trust the product integrity. The shoe ain't gonna rip on me. It's not gonna give me I'm not gonna have heel spurs. I'm not gonna have injuries.
Yeah,
that is why I'm buying it. I trust it, and I'm gonna look hot. But a lot of people think that people buy based on what they're selling. It's like, no, the ultimate choice architecture is very, very different. It's kind of like you ask what a woman wants: tall, dark, and handsome. We all heard that. And then you say, why'd you fall in love? Oh, he makes me laugh. Okay, so in the laughter, there is a safe space. In the safe space is trust. Not tall, dark, and handsome necessarily in the safe space, unless you just feel like you need a big dude who's going to keep you physically safe. But let's be clear, they're big men who don't keep people safe. So again, people need to understand the difference, overall architecture of decisioning of human nature, and why trust is the catalyst.
Okay, so because I know I have to get you out of here soon, so I'm going to ask you about 2 more questions. And again, I have some written down. This is one question that I was told to ask you. As a man of color navigating leadership, how did you learn when to adapt, when to push back, and when to stay rooted in who you are?
Ooh. I think you have to understand, as I said earlier, what you're up against, what the perceptions will be. You need to have studied them because you need to be well aware. Look, people are always manifesting feelings inside other people about themselves. So as you and I are talking, feelings are manifesting inside of you about this dude who's on the camera I'm recording.
Yeah.
You have to understand the rooms you're walking into and what feelings you will manifest in them based upon level of seniority, level of rank, ethnicity, perceived expertise. My thing is you want to be more certain than the person across the table for you, meaning you want to outflank them. Because I think what a lot of people do is they don't necessarily fact check everything you say. But the question is, are you more convincing than the ideals that are in their head? And great, it's fantastic to have numbers to back it up, in particular precise numbers. But I think the biggest thing is I was always very self-aware, which is why I knew how to come in the room and disarm people. Disarming people is a fantastic gift, not only for negotiation, but just interaction with people. You got to be worldly. You got to do world building. Like, you need to be around a series of different cultures and you need to take it in. You need to have a high degree of observability. A lot of people don't. Better to observe than be talking. I mean, these are basic tenets, but these are things that are also part of the art form that allow you to navigate and move in and out of different rooms. You got to understand what moves them and gets them going. You got to be able to relate outside of the work. So, as a guy who's doing automotive, it's very easy. I'm a car guy, so I can always launch into car mode, race mode, all the other modes. You got to know the other modes you should be in. I think there's just a lack of savvy in people understanding how to navigate because they're sitting there doing this on devices, doom scrolling, and those don't teach you anything. But I think the biggest thing that I always understood is, I went to school in predominantly white communities, so I knew how to move amongst other cultures, went to an HBCU to get that experience. But now I have the range of moving in and out of rural areas, big city, Black communities, Asian communities, Latino, doesn't even matter, queer. And I've worked and interfaced with all of them. You understand that you amass a superpower when you do that, but you have to create exposure points for yourself. And that is what people do. You have to put yourself in the circumstance to navigate through it, understand how you did, kind of reassess it, refine it, and keep moving. And a lot of people just don't understand this notion of world building. They still live in a very sort of black and white society. But when you start moving into major business, you're going to interface with everyone. And in a lot of instances, less of us. And I always tell people, like, look, I want to interact with people who are business people. Because a lot of people in advertising, some of these other industries, they ain't business people.
Gotcha.
Because they will waste the time and the energy. So again, I think you get to a place of refinement, but the first thing is you want to socialize yourself. You want to do the world building. You got to have, it's an experience economy we live in. Go experience it. A lot of people just don't want to get out in space to experience it. Look, that helps you get over things like social anxiety. It's like a muscle. You got to continue working it, flexing it. You know what I'm saying? You got to get the reps in. I tell people all the time, yeah, but you don't have no reps. I'm not good at it. You don't have no reps. You're not repping. You got to get reps in.
I like the experience economy. It's like what I tell my kids, we need our experience bank. Like, this is another bank we have. So you've worked with massive brands. You've been in data. You've been in technology. But at the end of the day, we're still dealing with people, right? How have you seen that you have grown as a leader? How has your leadership been changed or grown from that perspective?
One of the things I was blessed to in my internship experience, I did an internship with Pfizer in human resources. I got a book called People Styles, read it. And the whole thing is people are different characters. I can talk about the plurality of human identity. And some companies are like different characters in a sitcom. You have to understand that to meet people. One person told me, said, Albert, you know what your gift is? You have the ability to meet people where they are and then pull them forward with you. Like, that is another skill, but you've got to be able to meet people where they are, because at the end of the day, half the time they're just in their head. They're not even paying attention to you. They just stuck there spiraling whatever. And the ability to meet them and pull them forward is something that is very, very important if you're going to move in and out of different walks of life of people. And you got to be able to find different ways to relate to them because they're already making assumptions. I think the main thing is a takeaway is you want to be like, man, that's a cool person right there. Like, I could rock with him. Like, we may not have the same politics. We may be from a different region of the country. We might even have a whole lot of commonalities. Maybe he don't even drink beer like I drink beer. But we can find the common ground and move it on. And I think people just don't have exposure and experience of really being relatable. Look, the life is about laws of attraction. You want somebody to work with you, work alongside you, work for you. If you're dating, you need somebody to want to cohabitate with you. Laws of attraction. That's probably one of the most important skills. And look, that's the art of branding. You got to create attraction for people who want to overrun the band, consume the brand, rock the brand, and put forth the consumer identity and brand likeness.
Man, Thank you so much for this conversation. I think we walked away with some tremendous gems and got to know you a little bit better and how you've achieved the success you've achieved. But if I'm just walking away from here, beyond just being technically proficient, to get into these leadership roles, you really have to develop the whole person, right? The whole person. And so if we have parents, because this is brought to you by Black Dad Unfiltered Media, I think the best thing you can do for your children is teach them how to teach themselves and get them as much diverse experiences as possible so they can start building their experience bank in this experience economy. Albert, thank you once again. It's a pleasure to have you on the Playbook with Coach Rod. We hope to have you again, folks. As always, folks, if you want to see this episode, it will be on YouTube. Visit our YouTube page at Black Dad Unfiltered. Follow all of our social media at Black Dad Unfiltered. And once again, folks, let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow.